We are now down to just 2 weeks of the regular season left. But when you really look at the calendar and you really look at the discussions we're having, Mitch, the playoffs have already started for a lot of teams in our area. We saw it last Friday. We're going to continue to see it. So you know what that means? We got to be giving our best performances here on the pod. Are you ready to bring it all here, give our best effort?
I've got my hydration multiplier here. We are in playoff weather now, Greg, seemingly.
Yeah.
So, yes, we are in the final 3 weeks, 1 week of those down, I suppose. So, yeah, we are now into the nitty gritty of the season. Really looking forward to how this is going to shake out.
Well, we're getting into the nitty gritty and no cramping up in your podcast chair there, Mitch. We're ready to go. Let's get into it.
Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome back to View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, joined once again, as always, by the man, the Mitch, the legend, Mitch Stormer. Yeah, I think I used that one last year too, but it's a good one. It's good to bust out once a year. So, Mitch, you're here. You're ready to roll.
Yeah, if you saw my fantasy team this week, Greg, you would know legendary stuff on the field. I have DJ Moore and Jamar Chase. At this very moment, just those two guys are outscoring my opponent for the week. So really, a really good week for the fantasy team.
Well, and can we talk a little bit about DJ Moore and the Bears? Mitch, they are undefeated on Thursday nights.
Hey,
Undefeated.
You like that?
Yeah, see? How we've come a long way since last week we recorded, right? Maybe not. Maybe we haven't come that far. But either way, DJ Moore looked really good. That was fun. For a brief little, 3-hour window, it was fun to watch the Bears. We'll see where it goes from here. But
right.
The Panthers are still losing, which is always good for Bears fans. So,
yes.
All right. Well, we'll pivot into the high school football. That's what we're here to talk about. But Mitch, before we dive into it, you know who we got to thank. Let's give them their shout out.
Yeah, tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround, and their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
Sounds good. Well, here we go, Mitch. We're looking back at week 7 that was, and we're looking ahead at week 8. If you want to get all the details, and when I say all the details on week 7, I mean it this time. Go back, listen to the Instant Reacts podcast. Mitch, you realize that we were like in excess of 2 hours. Was it 2 hours or more last week?
It sure was. I did notice that, Greg, at 2 a.m. So, when you get the Taylors and you get Brian Stocking in a room together, there's going to be a lot of history. Just a lot of good football talk. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, a lot of great conversation, a lot of good reminiscing, and we appreciate their coverage all year, every year.
I was going to say, it's called the Instant Reacts podcast, and we certainly reacted to a lot in that show, but we also took some side tangents and really talked big picture high school football, which is great. Jim Taylor, Ty Taylor from WRMJ joined us along with Brian Stocking. It was a ton of fun. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode, and you can get all the information you need for week 7. We'll talk a lot about week 8 here. If you want to support the podcast, you can head over to PayPal. PayPal.me/viewfromwestpod. That's the easiest way you can support local high school football. You can support View from the West. Again, head to PayPal, search View from the West, or paypal.me/viewfromwestpod. All right, Mitch, here we go. Week 7 that was, and the game that really stood out was Quincy and Sterling. And for the second straight week, it's Sterling giving a great effort. They beat Geneseo a week ago. This week, they fall just short to Quincy. You were watching this one. Talk about the effort from Sterling. Quincy prevails. They're a great program, but I think we took a lot away from Sterling in this one too.
Yeah, it looked early on, it didn't seem that way. Quincy jumped out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter, moving the ball as they have against all the opponents that they've played this year. But Coach John Schlemmer team never goes away. This Sterling team really came back in the second quarter. I think there was 35 points scored between two teams. 27 or 28 of those were by Sterling. And it was just the way that they were hanging in there. You know, they scored. They got a quick interception. I don't remember actually the order of how this went, but they got an interception and then scored. They had a fumble, or they recovered a fumble on a kickoff return. They scored after that, and then Quincy would score. So it was back and forth in the second quarter. But Sterling really had the upper hand in that second quarter. I believe it was 35-27 at the break. After all that scoring, defenses shined in the third quarter. No offense really got the ball moving all that well. Sterling comes back. They get a score. They're in the fourth to get it within 35-33. They try for the 2. It gets knocked down. The Quincy defense that we've been talking up all season kind of had the final say in this one, batting down the 2-point conversion. So in the end, Quincy was able to get the ball back. They drove down, got a first down, and they were able to knee this one away. But yeah, it was a tremendous effort from Sterling. A Sterling team that played really well, as you mentioned last week. A team that now is sitting at 3-4 on the year. Certainly not out of it. Don't think they're out of it at all. We'll get into that in a second. But in the end, Quincy remains undefeated on the season, remains unbeaten in the Western Big Six. And now with 2 weeks left, I believe they have a share, I want to say, because they play Seymour in week 9. So they've only got one more conference game against Geneseo. It's a big game, and again, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But Quincy does at least get a share of the Western Big Six title this year.
Yeah, and like you said, Quincy remains undefeated. They're 7-0 for the first time since 1935. That great stat per Matt Schuckman. And actually, happy birthday to Matt Schuckman. It's Chuck's birthday today. Yeah. Right. Well, today as we record, it's his birthday. So it's his birthday week, his birthday month. We'll just continue to celebrate.
Yeah, it's a celebration whenever you hear this. Yeah.
Whenever you hear it. Exactly. That's exactly right. And Mitch, there was some real star power at this Quincy Sterling game. Dan Pearson and Edgy Tim, both in the house watching that game. So
it's all a good one for sure.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, leading into this game, I certainly don't want to diminish a 7-0 Quincy team. I think I was just really impressed with, like you said, the fight that Sterling showed to battle back and to keep this game close all the way to the end. I definitely think there's a path for them to get to the playoffs. And maybe 2 weeks ago, that looked a little murky. That wasn't, it wasn't as, clear to see it as maybe you could see it now. They got to get the job done, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I was impressed with their effort. But on the Quincy side, they just continue to get the job done.
Yeah, and I'll get into their stats in a minute, just to rewind a little bit on Sterling. I think, we knew coming into this year that they were going to have a little bit of a quarterback influx, trying to figure out who was really going to take the helm there. And with Drew Nettleton in this game and moving forward, I think they've really found something. He had 4 TD passes, Greg. That sets a Sterling school record. So whenever you talk school records with Sterling football, that's pretty good. 235 yards on the night in a great effort. Again, on the short end of it, on the losing side of it, but a great effort and good momentum for them moving forward. On the other side for Quincy, Braden Little, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns. He added one on the ground. Tycho Hammers was a big target. He had 6 catches. 3 of them went for scores, 109 yards. And Jarius Rice, 184 yards on the ground. Also had 4 catches for 97 yards. So you're looking right at 300 total yards there for Jarius. Again, as closely as Sterling played them there this game and certainly the second quarter, it's all those Quincy weapons that really pushes them ahead in this one.
Yeah, it's funny when you read the stat line for Braden Little, 251, 3 touchdowns plus a rushing touchdown.
What went wrong? What went wrong?
For a lot of guys, it's like that's an all-time game for them, and for him, it's like, all right, that's pretty good. Like,
what did he have the last 2 weeks? He had 6 touchdowns, then he had 7.
Yeah.
So, listen, Braden, I know you listen. we got to step up these stats here, man. I mean, 16 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. We got to pump those numbers up.
All right,
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna put you on the spot then. What did Mitch Stormer QB1? What's the best game stats you ever had?
I can say for certain I don't think I threw for 16 touchdowns in my career. And you will hate this because my best game, not even statistically, but
I already know. Yeah.
My best game was my junior year against Ottawa Marquette.
Yeah. At Marquette, right?
At Marquette, week 1, we came away with the win. It was muggy as any game I can remember that night. And you got to walk up that big hill to the locker room and all.
Yeah. You're right down by the river. So it was probably,
Right.
Yep.
But I can say for certainty that I did not throw for, like I said, little did 16, I think, by my count. Or no, 16. I did not throw that many in my career ever.
All right.
I am in no position to talk about this at all.
All right. Let's move into the rivalry game between United Township and Moline. UT gets the 42-28 win over that school down the road. Did you catch that on
Yes, I did.
No, on the score on WQAD, Nick Welch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was on the interviews on the set live, and he only referred to the Maroons as the school down the road. So a little bit of gamesmanship in the rivalry there. It's the Panthers coming away with the upset win. Like I said, 42-28. That's a great win for a program that, has really, like any program this time of year with the record they have, they're hungry for a win. They're looking for any positive momentum. And, texting back and forth with Coach Welch, he felt like this was, finally a game where they put everything together. Like they really put everything on full display, played a complete game, and you could really see it play out. This is a great effort from the Panthers.
I think you saw this building for a couple weeks. They weren't getting the wins, but they were playing well. We've liked, obviously, what we've seen from Matthew Kelly the past couple of years. We've liked what we've seen from Corey Randall the past couple of years. And so you knew that this was coming. They played really well in that win earlier this year. And so for this, in a rivalry game towards the end of the year, this was a great performance by the Panthers. No doubt about it. I know that I didn't see the final stats on this one, but Matthew Kelly had 134 yards rushing in the first half. So he was really put on display with his dual threat ability. This went down into the fourth. Moline was driving. They were in a position to score. The Panther defense comes up with the goal line stuff. And with shortly after that, Corey Randall, who else from 52 yards out, really put this one over the top. So, Moline fought all to the end, but UT came up big when it mattered most. So great win for the Panthers.
You say that, we felt like this was building, but really in all reality, last week, they kind of had a clunker against Rock Island. We thought that would be a game where maybe we thought this would happen, where they'd play their best, they'd play a complete game and really show all of their skills on display. And it didn't happen. It was for United Township. And for a lot of us, I think that was kind of a surprise that they didn't win that one against Rock Island. So going into this one, honestly, I didn't think much of it. I thought that a few weeks ago, I thought that this game, I thought Moline or United Township had a potential playoff path. I said it'd be hard, but I thought they might be able to get there, and they lose to Rock Island. So then coming into this one, I didn't think much of it. And then here they go, they bounce right back. And so good for them. Good for head coach Nick Welch. But Mitch, the great story from this game, Grayson Anderson, senior captain for United Township, scored his first touchdown in his high school career. Now, the reason this is significant, because of all that he's been through. Let's go through the backstory here. He suffered a torn ACL as a sophomore, missed his entire football season as a sophomore. Last year, in the first game of the season against LaSalle Peru, he suffered another torn ACL, was out all of last year as well. He's back this season. To see him get a touchdown reception is amazing. I saw the highlight on Friday night. He catches the pass and immediately drops to his hands and knees. You can clearly see the emotion in the moment. Congratulations to him. Congratulations, Grayson. What a moment. Talking to head coach Nick Welch, he said he's a captain for the second year in a row on this team because he's one of the best players leaders and teammates that he's ever coached. So high praise coming from Coach Welch. What a moment, Mitch. This is really cool to see.
Yeah, we love stories like this. We hate it when, we see guys lose a season, right? And Grayson missed 2. So to come back, it's one thing to even have the mental toughness to say, you know what, I'm not done. I'm coming back. Injuries be damned. I'm gonna come back on this field and play. And so this was great. This was a really cool moment. You captured the essence of the play great. It drops down after the touchdown, and it's heartwarming all around. So yeah, congratulations to Grayson, and congratulations again to UT on the win. A big win, big night for them at the Soul Bowl.
Yeah, after this remarkable story, capping it off with his first touchdown. This is definitely worthy of the Mathewson's Mini Helmets Player of the Week for week number 7. Congratulations, Grayson Anderson from the United Township Panthers. He earns the mini helmet. He's got a mini helmet coming his way for all that he's been through and to get back on the field and have this moment. So you can find Mathewson's Mini Helmets on Facebook and on Twitter. Search them out. They do great work if you're looking for customized mini helmets, decals for your school. Like I said, find them on Facebook and Twitter. And one more time, congratulations, Grayson, and congratulations to the United Township Panthers. They get the win there against rival Moline. I'll call him Moline, even though Nick Welch won't do it.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
All right, a few more scores here. Geneseo gets the huge non-conference win over Mendota, 63-6. Jaron Neal ran the opening kickback 79 yards for a touchdown. AJ Weller, 4 first half touchdowns. 43rd overall playoff appearance is now secured for the Green Machine. So the Green Machine is rolling out there in Geneseo.
Yeah, ringing that bell out there for sure. It was tight early. It was I think Geneseo scored. I want to say that, and I could have this wrong now that I'm thinking about it. Geneseo, they might have missed the extra point because I thought it was tied. Mendota scored right after that, so it was 6. Again, I want to say it was 6-6. It might have been 7-6 at worst, but Mendota scored right away, and it was like, okay, Geneseo coming off a loss. What's their mentality like? But having AJ Weller back in that offense, they had that train rolling right away after that with 56, 57 unanswered following that Mendota score. So yeah, 43 overall appearances for the Green Machine. We've loved what they've been doing all year and looking forward to having AJ Weller back on the field after missing the second half last week against Sterling, and really looking forward to the prospects of Geneseo here moving forward. Big game coming up this week.
I was going to say they're sitting at 6-1, 3-1 in conference play. We'll get to that game in a second. One more game from the Western Big Six. Galesburg gets the win 24-7 over Rock Island. We got some information from QC Sportsnet. Of course, you can listen online every week to QC Sportsnet. They'll give you the Moline action. They'll give you United Township and Rock Island. They got you covered for the Western Big Six. Their write-up talks about Amari Richardson with 3 touchdowns, 3 running touchdowns. And then, Mitch, talk about Rock Island and the special teams issues here. You called this out on the Instant React, so we got some info here.
Yeah, so Galesburg started 6 drives in Rocky territory, and I'm almost certain that some of this it had to do with the following. The Rocks were in punt formation 5 times and didn't punt. They had 2 punts that were blocked. They had 2 others that were never kicked. I can only assume it was a bad snap or something.
Yep.
And then one that they actually did try to fake, but it did not go anywhere. So, some blunders from the Rocky special teams, maybe some good play from the Galesburg special teams there. So I don't think you see that sort of outcome on punts very often, certainly not all in one game. So, Galesburg takes advantage of starting in plus territory, and they get the win.
Yeah, Galesburg looks good in this one. And, this is a team that we've talked about. They have, athletes on the field. They maybe just don't have quite enough, quite enough talent to go around to compete week in and week out. But Rock Island looked good a week ago and got the win over United Township. And now here we go. It's, they kind of, fizzle against this Galesburg team. And congrats to Galesburg. They get their first conference win of the season. They're now sitting at 2-5. So, all right, Mitch, updated standings. We know Quincy's up top, undefeated, 7-0 and 5-0.
Yep.
You have Geneseo at 3-1 in conference play. They're 6-1 overall. You have Sterling at 3-1 in conference play. They're 3-4 overall. So they have a lot here riding on the line the next 2 weeks. We just talked about, some of the teams in our area are already in playoff mode, and Sterling is definitely one of those teams. Moline, also one of those teams. They're 1-3 in conference play, but they're sitting there at 3-4 overall. So they need 2 more wins to get in. But here's the thing. There's, matchups that only one of those can get in. So
yeah, and I think I credit to Stocking on this. I think he called this out on one of the instant reacts that he thought it was going to come down to week 9, and that is exactly what it's going to look like. I think both teams, talking about Sterling and Moline, are going to be 4-4 heading into week 9. That game is at Sterling and could very well mean that one team gets into the playoffs and the other goes home. Now, certainly we've seen some funky stuff in the playoffs before with 4 and 5 teams getting in. I don't know at this second what the playoff for those classes looks like. But to think that either one would get in at 4 and 5 is usually not. It usually does not happen. So what more could you want on the line? Certainly last year they played for the conference title. I guess that could be one thing. But this is about surviving and getting on to the next week. So getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there. But I do think that week 9 will be a pivotal game for both of those teams. Maybe one of them over the other.
Yep. Let's go through the matchups here in week 8. Galesburg at Moline, Geneseo at Quincy, and then Rock Island taking on Sterling. So both teams got to take care of business this week, referencing Sterling against Rock Island and Moline against Galesburg. United Township gets a win this week. They'll have a forfeit victory. So, that's the big matchup, though. Geneseo at Quincy. Geneseo takes the long road trip. They stumbled against Sterling, and they're going to face another good defense in Quincy. Can they figure out what didn't go so well against Sterling and right the ship on this road trip? That's the question. But man, Quincy seems to be playing as well as any team we've talked about over the last few years. I mean, they just haven't flinched.
Yeah, that Geneseo defense is really, really good, right? They have allowed the least amount of points in the Western Big Six, but they have not played Quincy. So they will definitely be the hardest test the Maple Leaf defense has seen this year. And it goes with Quincy too. The Geneseo defense is really good. So this will be a battle, I think. Can that Maple Leaf defense, again, they haven't allowed 21 points, more than 21 points this year. They've allowed it twice against Moline and UT. Other than that, you're talking a shutout, 3 points, 7 points, 3 points, 6 points. Really, really good defense. But looking at what Quincy has done, 55-40, 41-34, 63-56-35. So this is 2 really good teams. And on you flip the ball too. Quincy's got a good defense. Geneseo's got a really good offense. So this is what you want in a game that is going to determine whether Quincy wins the Western Big Six outright or whether they will share this title. So really, really looking forward to it. I can tell you right now, this will be where my attention is on Friday night. Really looking forward to this game.
Yeah. Yep. A lot to be determined in 2 weeks of play in the Western Big Six. And man, I'm here for it. I'm excited to see how this all plays out. Well, we saw plenty of drama in the Three Rivers Athletic Conference on Friday night, last Friday. We talked all about it on the Instant Reacts because Jim Taylor was live on the call for Rockridge and Morrison. Ty Taylor was live on the call for Sherrard and Orion. I called them in the Instant Reacts before those games played out because I just thought there's a lot riding on the line for both those games. I want to just get them in and talk to them in general, but it could not have worked out any better. These 2 games were fantastic. Go back. I encourage everyone, if you haven't already, listen to those podcasts. That podcast. It's really cool to get their perspective being there. I was also in attendance for one of these games, the Rockridge Morrison game. Maybe the best game I've seen this year, maybe the best games I've seen in a few years. It was great. Rockridge and Morrison, for as much as we've talked about the offensive explosiveness, we've talked about both teams' defenses as well. The defense was on full display for a majority of this game. Two really good football teams all the way around, going toe-to-toe. Excellent, excellent football. Morrison was real. I mean, Rock Ridge was in control. It was a 0-0 game, but Rock Ridge really was, getting more done offensively, and they weren't able to punch it in. They got one touchdown called back in the third quarter due to penalty, and then they fumbled in the red zone to give it back to Morrison. So they had a chance. On the flip side, Morrison, the stats were staggering. They were really struggling to get first downs. I mean, I think Jim Taylor said 3 on the night, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. And I don't know that they eclipsed 100 yards rushing, maybe just barely. But yeah, and look, privately, non-bias aside, I was worried that the cold and wet that it was on Friday would slow Morrison down. I've seen it happen. It happened to the teams that I played on. When we lost to Dakota in the playoffs, it played right into Dakota's strength that our speed was kind of neutralized a little bit by the playing conditions. Certainly Rock Ridge had to play in it too. I'm not suggesting that weather had a big influence on the game, but it does slow fast teams down. So I was curious how this would look. And from talking to some people who were at the game, it was evident right away that Rock Ridge is a very big team. They have some really good size on that defense. And they absolutely shut down Morrison's attempts to run up the middle. And again, because it's wet, because it's cold, because it's soggy, getting to the outside, you're not as at an advantage as Morrison has been accustomed to all season. So, we know that Rock Ridge had a good defense. We know that Morrison's had a good offense. And, if you played this game 10 times, each team might win 5, right? But yeah, it's all the credit in the world to Rock Ridge. It sounds like I'm probably making excuses. I don't mean it that way, because Rock Ridge played a really good game. The way that they came back, because it looked like Morrison, when they scored first, they were in the fourth. Okay, that was it. That's the only score this game's going to have. Rock Ridge said not so fast, and then they had to do it again. But let's get into how this shook out, Greg.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it was a great football game through the first 3 quarters. I mean, 2 great defenses going toe-to-toe. But in the fourth quarter is where it really got fun. Chase Newman went up and grabbed. I mean, he was a you got mossed, ESPN highlight a week ago for his catch against Sherrard. In this one, he goes up, makes an over the head, one-handed. I mean, almost like Odell Beckham Jr. Yeah. I mean, if you see that kind of catch, right. I mean, goes over his head, snags a ball one-handed for the interception. Rock Ridge immediately turns around, throws to Anderson deep downfield, gets him to about midfield. Very next play, I mean, it's a huge catch. That's a great catch for Chase Newman right after the interception. And then go ahead.
Was it Newman that caught that?
I believe so. I think Newman had the interception, and then Newman had the catch.
See, he was behind some of the defenders, but there was 4 Rocket defenders that jumped for that ball. And so he didn't moss them. I don't want to say that he caught it like in the midst of 4 defenders, because he was still behind them. Yeah. But to have that concentration, it was a great play.
Yeah, no, that was one of the highlights I put in for WQAD, and it was, he grabbed, it was a great catch, and he almost had to corral it, had to catch it twice and get it back in, because there was so much traffic around him when he grabbed it. But what a play. That immediately sets up next play. Brady Anderson does what we've seen Brady Anderson do repeatedly last year and this year. Finds a seam, gets around the edge, and he's gone 44 yards for a touchdown with about 9 minutes left to play. Rock Ridge would get the ball back with a little under 3 to play. Alex Zarlatanis scores with 2 minutes left. The place is going crazy. I mean, it's the energy right at that moment. It's 7-6. Rock Ridge is attempting the extra point. The extra point is blocked, and the energy in that place goes up even more, because you have Rock Ridge fans who are going crazy. Then it flips on a dime, and Morrison fans are going crazy because they hold the 7-6 lead. Rockets get the ball back on their own 20. They drive 80 yards downfield. Schweigen finds Landon Wheatley as a leaping, diving for the pylon type of touchdown. Man, my only regret is that he did it on the opposite pylon, not the one on my near side. Yeah. But, that's just me.
Hey, look. Hey, we had some friends on the sidelines on that correct side, so we got some good video from them.
Yeah, exactly.
As a photog as you are, that's your worst nightmare.
Yeah. luckily I had it. There wasn't like referee running in my vision or anything. So
yeah, you still had it.
Yep. But just a huge turnaround. And that's a gut check type of moment for any team, for any program. Yeah. When you're on the road against a team that's state ranked, undefeated, for as much, let's be honest, for as much as we've talked up Morrison and they have that lead and they block your extra point, like just the way it's set up.
And you have no timeouts.
And you have no timeouts.
That's how they got the ball back. I mean, they used their timeouts, but that 80-yard drive.
And so for Cullen Schweigen, a freshman, to remain cool, calm, collected, and keep marching them downfield. And Zarlatanis also stepped up, found some holes. Nothing huge, no huge breakaways, but just continued to march them down the field.
Yeah, they had that first or second play where they took to the air. I don't know if it was Wheatley who caught it, but they had a big pass play that got them over the 50. And that's when you saw some more chunk runs by Zarlatanis. Schweigen might have kept a couple, but they were able to get into position from pass, and they kind of just looked like they worked the clock closer and closer and closer, and then finally got that score with 12 seconds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Something like that.
The connection, we've talked about it going back to week 1. The connection between Schweigen and Landon Wheatley, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Like they're on the same page. You could just see it. I mean, he's finding him open, and Wheatley's coming up with some grabs. Like it's a lot of fun to watch those two.
Do we know what grade Wheatley is?
I don't know if he's a junior. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Something to look forward to moving forward.
Yeah.
We know Schweigen will be back.
Yes. For Rock Ridge, they then had to hold the lead. There was still 18 seconds left on the clock. The Morrison last attempt intercepted on the sideline by Trevor Dye. He tiptoes the sideline, comes up with the catch with 5 seconds left. So that would end it. If you want to see everything we're talking about, I encourage you to go to View from the West on YouTube. I was able to put together all of my highlights of that final drive, and I was able to edit it together with the audio from Jim Taylor from WRMJ Radio. It's just awesome. It's so fun. Like I had it in my head, like this would be really cool if I could piece this all together. And it worked out even better than I could have imagined. It's great. Jim Taylor on the call with Glenn Cook. You hear their emotion, their excitement coupled with the video. It's great.
We need to have Jim Taylor sing our Christmas song so we can put that to our highlights so we don't get copyright, notes again.
I don't know.
Have Jim Taylor singing "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year," so we don't have to worry about getting yelled at by legal.
But Twitter, the X is under new ownership now, so maybe we can get away with stuff. I don't know.
That's true. We'll see.
Or maybe we'll really be locked down. Maybe we'd really get in more trouble.
Oh, yeah, that's
because we don't have the blue check mark. We're not that cool.
No.
Well, I don't know if Jim Taylor sings. We can certainly look into that. So
okay. So yeah.
All right. Well, what a game. What a win for Rock Ridge. And Mitch, I'm editing, out in the Morrison parking lot. I'm sure an area you're very familiar with, the walk back and forth from the locker room there. And, as I'm getting done editing, I see Rock Ridge fans and players out there in the parking lot. And I think it was Schweigen and maybe Landon Wheatley was in there, Connor Deem and a few others. Mitch, they were very quick to remind me of who we need to talk about as the best team in the Three Rivers on this side of the division now. So,
okay, look, we stopped right there because at the beginning of the year, I predicted Rock Ridge to either go 8-1 or undefeated. So miss me with that, Rock Ridge. All right, you beat my team. I talked up Morrison, deservedly so. But don't forget that I predicted that you would win the division. So don't even start. Come on.
Yeah, you weren't even.
I was even going to wear my Rock Ridge shirt, and I forgot.
I mean, I would never say that I blamed you when they were calling these things out, but you're not there to defend yourself. So
well, again, hello, check the receipts. I said you'd win the division, so no, don't even start. Don't even start.
No, it was a lot of fun. They were having fun with it. It was great. So congratulations to them. And now I'm going
to need you to find that audio and specifically tweet it out where I said that.
All right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, like you pointed out, Mitch, that the podcast comes with receipts automatically. That's
right. Wrong, right, or indifferent. It's there somewhere. In this case, I am right.
There you go. Okay. Yes. Fair. That is very fair. So And on the flip side, real quick, before we wrap this one up, Morrison, tough loss, but against a very good Rockridge team. We were impressed with Rockridge's defense from the very beginning of the season, especially in the run game. I really feel like they can control teams on the ground. And so Rockridge did that. But for this Morrison team, there's a lot of good football left for them.
Yeah. And, Kyle Kampmeyer at NUIC Football had tweeted, if Morrison can't run in the little rain, what are they going to do in the playoffs? And my response to him was, well, they don't have to play this Rockridge defense because this Rockridge defense is really good too. So, some adversity isn't going to hurt Morrison. I think they'll go 8-1 into that 1A playoff. They'll have a good standing. Again, of course, playoff games are going to be kind of the same conditions, but Rockridge is a really good football team. They'll run into good football teams in the playoffs too. But yeah, there's a lot of season, I think, left for Morrison. So nothing to be discouraged about. This was a great game, classic game, and unfortunately someone had to lose. Yeah.
Well, let's keep moving down the way here to the other game covered by WRMJ and the Taylors, who are, again, on the Instant Reacts podcast. Go out and listen to that. Sherrard gets the wild 27-26 win over Orion. We'll jump into it. But before we do, Mitch, can you ever remember, in our time doing this podcast or just in general watching high school football, a team lose like Orion has in 2 weeks in a row?
Man, they've had a tough stretch here, losing last week to Erie Prophetstown on the very last play and on the ensuing 2-point conversion. And then in this one with just a couple seconds to go, it's a team that battles and all the way to the end. And unfortunately, they just haven't been in that win column these past couple of weeks. But, the fight is there, and that's what you're looking for. And, unfortunately for them with the fifth loss now, your playoff outlook is pretty bleak. But, this team is young. They're going through the fights now. It's hard to see how that'll impact you moving forward, but I think that'll just strengthen this Charger team. So, look at Sherrard. They've been through it, and they come out here on the outside winning the game late. So, iron strengthens iron here for Orion. So, keep your heads up. You're playing well. And I think in the end, again, a young team that will always get experiences from these games, and it'll help them moving forward.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, Sherrard found themselves in the same spot as Orion, sitting at 2-4, needing to win out. And they get this first one in dramatic fashion here. It was a matchup between 2 and 4 teams, but when you're talking rivalry and you're talking what's on the line, this is playoff atmosphere type stuff. That place, from what I heard on Ty Taylor's call on WRMJ and from what I saw in pictures, man, this atmosphere was electric. It's a playoff type game.
Yeah, I was able to catch this game. I was able to catch the ending of this one on NFHS. Didn't have the audio, didn't have Ty's audio on there, but yeah, you could hear the crowd noise, and it was on fire.
Yeah, well, for good reason, it was on fire. Holland Anderson to Cyrus Hoke from 23 yards out to score with 5 seconds left. That capped off a 98-yard drive in 1 minute and 36 seconds. Mm-hmm. So remarkable turn of events there for Sherrard. And talk about, Ty got into it on the Instant Reacts. Talk about a bizarre way to end, to cap it all off. The extra point is redone because of an offsides on Orion. So that's a pre-snap penalty. So they have to re-kick, even though Sherrard made the kick. They have to re-kick it because of an Orion penalty. The second one is a botched snap, which Noah Fender rolled out, tries to throw it into the end zone.
I think that was the first one.
Oh.
That was the first try.
Okay.
Noah Fender took the ball. Now I'm second guessing myself. I thought that's how this worked because I tweeted it as it happened, which mea culpa on my part to Noah Fender. I said it was the holder that did this, but it was him. Rolled around, threw the ball, and it almost gets caught. It was a crazy play.
Yeah.
And then they said he was offside. The play shouldn't have continued on because it's a pre-snap penalty.
Okay.
And then it just continued to get kind of weird from there.
Well, so then I thought one was a pre-snap penalty, one was that horse collar.
unless I'm remembering wrong, I think it was the same thing.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Either way, they had to they had to kick
because
it again.
yeah, because when he threw it, it was incomplete, and yet they still got to kick again. So I think that's why that was. Again, Sherrard fans correct us if we're wrong. That's how I remember it. A lot was going on Friday night. It's hard to keep it all straight. But
I tell you what, you can go back for the correct version of the story. Go back and listen. Ty Taylor posted the entire final drive of Sherrard on WRMJ.com. I listened to it while I was mowing grass yesterday. It was great. And now I'm, I was so clearly so dialed into my grass mowing that I don't exactly remember how it all happened. But either way, they missed one attempt and went back and had to kick it again. And they did get it through the second time to grab the 1-point victory. Sherrard time of possession, 32 minutes to Orion 16. So, pretty big disparity there. Anderson had 294 yards. The Sherrard program, we talked about them and Orion both needing to win out. The path is there for Sherrard to do it. We'll get more into the matchups in a minute here, but the path is there.
Yep, I think so too.
Yep. All right. Well, one positive note for Orion over the weekend, I saw that former Orion standout Logan Lee, this was a Don Doxey tweet, former sports editor at the QC Times, thought that Logan Lee looked like an NFL quality defensive tackle for the Iowa Hawkeyes over the weekend. 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. So great kid, great athlete, Logan Lee, getting the job done for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So the defense looks good for Iowa. I don't, want to get into the rest of it because it's just.
Can he play offense?
Well, he did. Yeah, he used to be a really good tight end. So
yeah, see, there we go.
All right. Few more scores here from the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. Kewanee bounces back, gets the win over Monmouth Roseville, 42-21. That gives the Boilermakers their 6th win, so they are playoff bound. Princeton gets the win over nearby rival Bureau Valley. Last time they'll play for a while in the Rumble and Roar matchup there. Bureau Valley fumbled on the very first play. Tigers scored 2 plays later and really kind of jumped on it from there.
You said it. It was early and often for Princeton. And this is only the 3rd time these two teams have met. They're only 16 miles apart. Now certainly, that there are conference affiliations, there's been switches, there's been divisions, things like that. But still, there's been enough, I think, either open weeks or whatever it might be. I would have thought it surprised me. I don't know the inner workings of how it took so long to get this matchup. To me, it just seems crazy that it had been so long that these two had played. But in all 3 games, Princeton's really had the upper hand. They've outscored BV 135-16 in this 3-game series. Kevin Hieronymus with the Bureau County Republican had a great write-up on the history of this game. I believe we retweeted it, but you could find that. It was a really good insight into the series, and unfortunate that. I'm not gonna say it's over, right? We thought that with Morrison and Fulton prior. Now that's coming back. So never say never with the way things are shifting around. But for Princeton, another great win as they kind of hold their own fate there in the track Mississippi side.
So we already referenced Mendota fell to Geneseo 63-6. Erie Prophetstown gets another win. They win over Riverdale 46-7. They led 26-0 after the first quarter. Never looked back in this one. Jeremiah Kochevar had 3 rushing touchdowns, so he continues to play well for the Panthers. On Saturday, Newman got the win 28-7 over Hall. Newman took a 7-0 lead 4 minutes into the game with a 7-play, 74-yard drive. That really set the tone for them. But Mitch, again, it's the defense that leads the way, for them. Offense can set the tone, and that's great. I think it helps them a lot. But the defense, let's talk about this Newman defense again.
Yeah, so in this one, Carter Root had 2 interceptions. And so that led me to text Coach LeMay this morning and said, hey, how many are you guys up to this season? And he said, well, we had 5 total turnovers during this game. And now I got to look it up. But I think he said it was 23 that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so we'll say 23. And, that's pretty much evident of a Newman team, right? A 7-play, 74-yard drive and a really good defense. That's Newman to a T. Further talking to Coach LeMay, as they continue this really good stretch of good football. Big game coming up this week, but they're headed to the playoffs once again. They're still looking for some consistency on that offense, but what is getting them by, I think, is that defense giving them the opportunity, right? The defense is going to keep them in games. So while they are going through some growing pains on offense, trying to see what works, that defense is always going to be to have their back because it is really, really good unit.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought was so important to mention, that, when they drive down and score right away on their opening drive, and, the article in Friday Night Drive referenced, which shout out to Friday Night Drive, great coverage from around the state. Seuss is all over it. But, on the local level in the Sauk Valley area, the write-up talked about that opening drive really setting the tone. So if the offense can set the tone and give this team some points, I think that goes a long way to really giving that defense just the utmost confidence to know that, hey, if we get a few points on the board, we're not going to give up, much here. We're going to keep ourselves in any game. So it becomes huge when you score early.
Yeah, I'm looking back here trying to see Newman's defense. I mean, they've had a couple games that they allowed 20. One was against Princeton. The other one was in a win against Rock Island.
Yep, and that's the most. That's the most they've allowed.
Yep. Other than that, it's 7 against a really good Rock Ridge team, 10 against a Sherrard offense that's pretty good, and then 7 against Erie that's been playing better, 14 against Bureau Valley, and then 7 here against Hall. So a really good unit. It's going to serve them well heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mitch, we always talk about, the Newman defense, but the story of this game was special teams. How about Anna Jungerman? She's a cheerleader turned kicker. She went 4 for 4 on extra points in her first game. So yes, you heard me right. Cheerleader turned kicker. After the Rocky game, she started attending practices. They've been working with the cheerleading team, which she had been on at the start of the season, to see how and if she could do both. And according to Coach LeMay, both teams both programs agreed that, let's make this work. The cheerleading team and the football team. So she has moved from cheering on the sidelines to suiting up with pads and a helmet for the Comets.
Yep.
The best part of the story is she's kicking the extra points now, kicking the field goals for them. She still performed at halftime with the cheer team with pads under her cheerleading uniform. I love this story. I don't think I've ever heard this. You've seen football players in the band at halftime or for the national anthem, but I don't think I've ever seen a cheerleader go out and then be on the team.
Yeah. So former soccer player, and Coach LeMay I think him and his coaching staff just came to the conclusion that they needed a kicker, and the kids knew where to find one. So this is a really cool story for Newman and for Anna. So congrats to her on those kicks. Maybe we'll see a field goal here in the next couple of weeks, going into the playoffs. So this is a story to monitor for sure.
Yeah, that would be great. I think it's funny. We saw a tweet after the game at some point about, how she went 4 for 4. And then a week ago, she was kicking in the Powder Puff game. And now she's kicking in a real game. So it's just really funny. Really great.
Yep. Love it.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go through the standings here and see what the matchups are for week 8. Princeton still sitting up at top of the Mississippi side of things at 6-1 overall, 3-0 in conference play. Kewaunee 3-1 in conference play. They're 6-1 overall. You have Bureau Valley at 2-3 in conference play. They are 3-4 overall. And then you have Newman, who's 1-1 in conference play, interestingly enough. So they still have 2 conference games left to be played.
I believe they're 2-1 now, right? Are you looking on IHSA?
Oh yeah, so I guess they have.
Yeah, it's not updated from Saturday. 2-1 now.
Oh, see, I should have trusted your notes, Mitch, and not the IHSA.
Yeah, see?
All right. Well, I will trust your notes for the Rock side of things. Rock Ridge Rockets gets the huge win. They're 5-0 on their side of the conference. They're 6-1 overall. Morrison 4-1 in conference play, 6-1 overall. Monmouth Roseville fighting for a playoff spot. They're 3-4, 2-2 in conference play. Sherrard, which we talked about, also still fighting for a playoff spot. They're 3-4 overall, 2-2 on their side of the conference. You also have Erie Prophetstown at 2-5 overall, Orion at 2-5 overall, and Riverdale's 0-5 and 0-7 on the season. Well, Mitch, let's get into the matchups on both sides here. You got Kewanee taking on Newman, Bureau Valley going up against Aurora Central Catholic, Mendota at Princeton, Hall at Rock Ridge. On the other side of things, Erie Prophetstown going up against Sherrard, Monmouth Roseville at Orion, and Morrison at Riverdale. So we talked about Monmouth Roseville and Sherrard. You know, they're in playoff mode already for sure.
Yep.
Can Sherrard continue to get the job done against an Erie Prophetstown team that's won 2 in a row? And then you look at Monmouth Roseville, they go on the road to Orion. Now, technically, no, I guess not technically is not the right word, but you feel like Orion's probably eliminated. It's very unlikely that a 4-5 team is going to get in at the 1A or 2A level. For Monmouth Roseville, you can't overlook them though, because they've obviously been very competitive in 2 games and fallen just short. If things go a little differently, it's Orion that's still fighting for that playoff spot.
Yeah, Monmouth Roseville certainly needs to win here. They've lost 3 in a row to really good teams, Morrison, Rock Ridge, and Kewanee. But I want to see a Titan team that played the first 4 weeks, right? They put up 21, they put up 42, they put up 55. That offense was really shining in the early part of the season. So, yeah, this is a big game for Monmouth Roseville because, and again, it could come down, like we're talking about in the Western Big Six, it could come down to the Week 9 matchup between Monmouth Roseville and Sherrard to see who gets in.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. I kind of forgot that, they're on a collision course to play each other. So if they can both get the job done this week, I think looking at that Sherrard matchup against Erie Prophetstown, again, Sherrard comes in with a lot of hype because of the win they just got. But this Erie Prophetstown team seems to be playing maybe some of their best football right now. Can they put it all together and, win a huge game for them and for playoff implications here if they can knock off Sherrard?
Yeah, 2 in a row for the Panthers. Offenses looked really good. Jeremiah Kochevar has that offense really, really playing well. So this is, as much as we've talked up Sherrard and the way that they've been playing, and now they're picking up some wins. This is a good Erie Prophetstown team coming. I should say hosting Sherrard. So that makes the road for Sherrard even harder, having to go on the road here. I believe that game is in Erie. I think that's what Ty said.
I think they're playing games in Erie this year. Yep.
Because did he say that WRMJ is going to that one?
I believe so. Yep.
Okay.
Ty will probably be on the call for that.
Yep. So gets windy there. So Sherrard passing attack might be limited a little bit if the weather's right. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting game this week, I think. Looking on, the other side, Kewanee and Newman.
Yep.
Kewanee's been playing really well. Newman's been playing really well. This will be a good contest. And, Rock Ridge coming off of a big win, emotional win. Hall's a good team. They can put it together. They've got some weapons that can beat you. So can they maintain their focus here? Can they keep their head on straight off a big win at home? That helps certainly. I expect them to, but I've seen what Hall can do in games like this season. So should be a good week.
Yeah, that Kewanee-Newman matchup intrigues me. I think it's a big test on both sides. 2 teams that are, playoff bound, but it's a good test for Newman, I think, to face a school that's a little bigger, that has some offensive firepower, see how their defense really stacks up against this, good Kewanee offense. And then on the flip side, I think it's a challenge for Kewanee. They're going to be tested against this Newman defense. So, can they move the ball? I think that's the, interest in that one that, really catches my eye. So we'll see how it all shakes out here. Well, Mitch, let's take a quick break to thank some sponsors and we'll jump right into the Lincoln Land Conference.
Brink Sportswear offers totally custom made-to-order football uniforms that allow coaches and athletic directors to take control of their brands. The uniforms are available in sublimated and tackle twill. They offer free digital mock-ups, free shipping on team orders, and free physical samples before you buy, so you know exactly how you're spending your program's money. Uniform sets start at $99 for sublimated and $120 for tackle twill. You can find them on Twitter or go to brinksportswear.com. View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel, gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support.
Let's get into the Lincoln Land Conference. We'll start with Mercer County. They get the win 36-8 over Illini West on Friday night. Mercer County scored on a 4th and 23 to open the game. So talk about setting the tone and, jumping all over Illini West early. It's a game that Mercer County desperately needed. They get the victory here at home at George Pratt Memorial. So good win for them.
Yeah, the score had a good highlight of that. Colby Cox marches the Golden Eagles down the field on that play. So, yeah, Merco's been a hard team to kind of figure out this year. So with that opening loss to United, but they played really well here, getting the win. And really, that's 2 in a row. They beat Elmwood Brimfield team that is now maybe a little bit better than they've been playing. With winnable games their last 2 weeks. So as mentioned, as hard it's been to kind of figure out Mercer County this year, they're still knocking on the door of the playoffs. I think they can get there.
Yeah, what I thought was really interesting, you talked about Mercer County being kind of a tough team to figure out. Coach Matlick's interview on WRMJ on Sportsline on Saturday morning, he mentioned that he really felt comfortable play calling in this one and that it played out that way. They get 36 points on the board, they get the win. And obviously they've had some success, in a few games this year, but he felt like he was finally in a groove for the entire game play calling. First year head coach, first time calling plays. So I think there is a learning curve there. And, his players are trying to figure out his system that they've installed. And, he's trying to kind of figure out what buttons to push and when. So, that's, I think, a big step in the right direction. If Matlick's feeling more comfortable each and every week, play calling wise, this offense is going to get that much better, and they're getting healthy. He talked about finally being, close to fully healthy, which they have not been. So that's also a big step for them. Like I said, it's games against Macomb and West Hancock that are winnable, but it's got to be that Mercer County team that showed up this past Friday, to continue to get that job done. Speaking of Macomb, Mitch, this score really kind of surprised both of us. They fall to Elmwood Brimfield 52-8. I don't think it's necessarily the surprise that Elmwood Brimfield got the win. I think that's a program that we've been impressed with. They nearly knocked off Farmington a week ago, but to come up and put in 52 points against Macomb, that did surprise me.
Yeah. Elmwood Brimfield coming in, it was their night, right? They have been playing well, as you mentioned. They almost got the win against a really good Farmington team last week. And Macomb has kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock here. Certainly know that there's a lot of outside factors going on in the community, which we certainly empathize with and understand. But for Elmwood Brimfield to come in, get the big win here, really good for that program moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. Well, speaking of a good win, a good positive win for a program, how about Anawan Wethersfield? They get the win 33-15 over Farmington. Yeah. Mitch, I wondered if, this Farmington team was rolling along, but I wondered if there'd be a chance that A&W could, make them stumble in this one, because Farmington was going on the road. They were, at Wethersfield. And sure enough, man, the Titans are rolling here. They fell 1 point short against Stark County in week 2. But ever since then, they look, every bit the team that we thought they thought they would be at the beginning of the year. So they're now 6-1. They knock off the Farmington team that had been previously unbeaten. Zeb Rashid, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dylan Ori, 153 yards on the ground. He had a touchdown as well, also with 114 yards passing. So great effort all the way around from this Titans team. This is a marquee win for them on their schedule.
Yeah. One thing right off the bat that I love that updates from this game or updates mostly every week come from. I think the handle is Geese Updates or Geese Athletics. The Wethersfield handle.
Yep.
I just if forever anyone who's listening who is not aware that the two schools are separate for other sports, the Wethersfield Flying Geese, a tremendous logo. I love seeing it. Anna won previously the Braves. That was great too. So
yep.
And anytime that account kind of pops up on the timeline, it's just like, it's like a little bit of nostalgia hitting. So I love to see.
There you go.
Yeah, Anna Wethersfield we knew was going to be a good player in the LLC standings this year. We did think they'd be one of the top 2 teams. Stark County has kind of come into that fold from I don't want to say from out of nowhere, but from underneath us, right? We weren't really talking them up as much, but a great result, kind of confirming that the Titans are really good here. Zeb Rash 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ori 153 on the ground, 114 through the air. So they're getting it done. Their players are playing well, and a great win overall for Anna Wethersfield. Moving, are they 6-1?
They are 6-1 now.
Yes. Yep. So the top 3 teams of that small side, really, really good football teams, all going to be in that 1A playoff picture.
Mitch, I do want to give a quick shout out to Annawan Wethersfield. Always has someone send us stats every Saturday morning or sometime over the weekend. I will say though, this week I couldn't quite read exactly how many who had all their rushing touchdowns. So I was trying to decipher what I was reading on the, actual game stat sheet. So if we shortchanged Dylan Ori or somebody who also had a rushing touchdown, I apologize, but I was trying to decipher the writing on there, and it gets, there's a lot of rushing and it kind of trails off on the end of the page. So, so apologies if we missed something, but we're trying here, and I appreciate that they send us some stuff every week. So
exactly. Yep.
So great win for them. They got a couple big matchups coming up we'll talk about in a minute here. Knoxville gets the win 47-26 over West Hancock. Blue Bullets remain unbeaten. They still have games against Fulton and Farmington. 2 huge matchups. A lot will be determined in those 2 games. Nolan McClay, 244 yards and 4 touchdowns. That brings him up to 1,464 yards on the season. 20 touchdowns total on the season. This kid, he's putting his name right up there for the View from the West Player of the Year.
Yeah, he'll be a candidate, no question about that. So another great game for him. Mitchell Parrish has been good all season too. He had 138 yards and 3 touchdowns in this one. So, like you mentioned, Blue Bullets won undefeated still in big games against Fulton Farmington. I think what we talked about in Instant Reacts was, I think, next week with Fulton, right? Record wise, these 2 teams don't match up the closest, but it'll answer the question of who's for real, right? Are teams in the LLC playing the best competition, and how will they fare against a team like Fulton playing in the toughest conference in 1A, or is Fulton much better than their, I think, 3-4 record states, and can they knock off an unbeaten? So this is a really interesting game. Won't matter certainly for any conference standings, but Knoxville and Fulton, we looked at it even at the beginning of the year as an interesting game, and it's still going to be a really good contest.
Yeah, it's definitely a measuring stick, between these 2 conferences and where teams sit, in the playoff mix, and kind of, how they'll fare potentially down the road. So
because Knoxville will be 2A, right?
Knoxville, I think, is usually 2A. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, all right, a couple more scores here. LVC, the Miners get their first win of the season, 36-6 over Oblong. That one was on Saturday. So congratulations to the Miners getting in the win column. Roval Williamsfield, they get the win over Rushville Industry, 45-16. They continue to roll along. Brian Bertelshofer, 138 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Riley Danner, 153 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Jack Godsell, great game all the way around. 9.5 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. He had 38 yards receiving and a touchdown. So those are just a few of the names. There's a few more names that played well. Talon Hull, 97 yards receiving and a touchdown. Spencer Brown, who I believe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we only called him Mr. Brown because we didn't have his first name. So Spencer had 49 total yards and a rushing touchdown. And Cole Miller, 4 for 4 in PATs and a 32-yard field goal. You know, Mitch, I will say maybe the best sign that you're playing good football is when I'm gathering stats every week and I know your players' names are right off the top of my head without even looking them up. So I already know the names. That's a good sign if you're a football program, if we know your name right away.
Yes, you got it.
Stark County gets the win, 48-28 over Princeville. But Mitch, the real big news coming out of Stark County this week, congratulations to head coach Jade Nord and his wife. Their child Hayden Nord was born on Sunday. So man, great season for him on and off the field. The Rebels are undefeated. You know, they have a baby who's arrived. So what a season, memorable one for Stark County for sure. And still time left here.
Yeah, a lot of great things going on there for the Rebels and Coach Nord. So yeah, I saw that picture on the timeline today. So again, congratulations to the Nord family on the new addition. Going back 2 days prior to that, Friday night, we knew that Princeville was kind of one of those teams that just likes to hang around and can disrupt it. They can disrupt game plans a little bit and even come away with a win in some of these games. But Stark County just continues to impress, continues to have really good play in all facets of their team, offense, defense, special teams. So they're getting it done. They look good. They're in the driver's seat here for the conference title, and again moving towards the 1A playoffs.
Yeah, you know, in talking back and forth with Coach Nord last week and a couple weeks ago, I think he was been impressed with his defensive, efforts, and he was kind of hoping to see more offense. So to get 48 points on the board against Princeville, that's got to be a good sign, that you're getting production all across the board here. And this Stark County team, 7-0. So, offense, defense, special teams, however they're doing it right. They're winning football right now. So 2 games left for them. Obviously, we'll get into those matchups in a minute. A-Town gets their second win in a row. This one over Havana, 14-12. You also had South Fulton getting the 34-6 win over United. So we talked about it on the Instant Reacts that, great start for United. They were, I believe, 2-0 to start the season. And now they've dropped, 5 straight. So tough road here for head coach David Milroy. Listened to a little bit of his post-game interview the other day. And, his message was, to the kids that regardless of what your record is, as a head coach, he's going to keep fighting for them and keep, doing all the work to put them in the best position possible. So the thing they can do is, do the same, play all out, give the effort. So great message, especially to the seniors. It hasn't gone as well as they'd hoped in the last few weeks, but you still got 2 weeks left to, play for some pride and really, get some wins on the board if possible. So best of luck to Monmouth United the rest of the way. Well, Mitch, let's look at the standings here real quick and then get into the matchups. You got Knoxville and Farmington sitting on top of the LLC large side of things, both undefeated in conference play. Knoxville's undefeated. Farmington just lost their first game, which we talked about. Macomb's 3-3 in conference play. Mercer County's 3-2 in conference play. Mercer County's got that 4 wins on their slate so far. Macomb sitting at 3-4. They need to get the next 2 to be playoff eligible. Illini West also sitting at 3-4, so they need to win out as well. Looking at the top of the small school side of things, Stark County 7-0, 6-0 in conference play. Roval Williamsfield 6-1, 5-1 in conference play. Same thing with Anawan Weathersfield, 6-1, 5-1 in conference play. Princeville still hanging around 4-3. South Fulton at 3-4, so they would need to win out potentially as well. The matchups, Mercer County and Macomb. That's a big one in week 8. Illini West against West Hancock. Farmington and LVC. Knoxville against Fulton. A-Town at Elmwood Brimfield. Fulton going up against South Fulton going up against Stark County. Havana taking on United. Anawan Weathersfield at Roval Williamsfield. Princeville taking on Rushville Industry. Mitch, I'll start with you. What's the matchup that stands out?
The one that stands out is Anawan Weathersfield at Roval Williamsfield. I think just 2 really good teams there on that small side. currently in a race for second with Stark County remaining undefeated, and I think that they'll get a win over South Fulton, so they'll stay that way. But a great game here between two really good programs that we'll see in the playoffs, but we'll see here who wins in the regular season. I'm looking to see if Princeville can get that fifth win. I think they can do it against Rushville Industry. Certainly, we talked about Knoxville and Fulton being a good crossover game. In the first game, you said Murco at Macomb. Can Murco continue to ride the momentum here, maybe against a fledgling Macomb program? Murco's trying to still get into the playoffs, at least get eligible for it at 5 wins. So, and Macomb is too, sitting at 3-4. So, big game for both of those two schools.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one that stands out, and that Anawan Wethersfield and Roval Williamsfield game is, that's the one we circled at the beginning of the season. And are we gonna go back and revisit that? I kind of planted my flag with Roval Williamsfield, and you kind of planted your flag with Anawan Wethersfield. So, this is kind of a battle between us now.
Right. Still, our receipts are poor in not predicting Stark County's rise. So they hold the upper hand here on us, no doubt.
And I'll be honest that Jade Nord, head coach at Stark County, he's been nice. He has not really rubbed that in my face. So yeah, maybe the players and the coach, maybe the players and him talk about it behind our back. But
right, your face is plastered all over the locker room. That's what motivates them here week after week.
But hey, we've talked about it. We could be motivators. That's fine.
So, that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, we will take one more quick break, and then we will jump into the Northwest Upstate Illini.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune in to For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Welcome back. Let's jump into the NUIC. Mitch, I was walking the sidelines in Northwest Upstate Illini country this week. We'll get to the Fulton-Dupec game in a minute, but we'll start with Dakota and Galena. Dakota gets the 20-0 win over the Pirates. Connor Matthews, 116 yards and a score. Jason Bowers added 65 and 2 scores. So Dakota gets the much-needed win. They're now sitting at 3-4 with Stockton and EPC left. So we'll talk about matchups in a minute, but this Dakota team, they're fighting for that playoff spot.
Yeah, so an up and down year for Dakota started well and kind of took a little bit of a detour here, but a good win over a good Galena team. And as you mentioned, they have, I think Stockton is kind of in the same predicament as Dakota. So this game in week 8 is really going to, I should say, well, I don't know. I do think whoever wins that game will go to the playoffs. I'll say that. So this is a big game between Dakota and Stockton coming up. So yeah, this was a good start to get them over that final hurdle to be eligible to be into the 1A playoffs again.
Yeah, a great long-time rivalry there. Dakota and Stockton, that should be a great atmosphere in week 8 for sure, with both teams, fighting for a playoff spot. Well, Mitch, the game we just referenced, I was walking the sidelines in Fulton. They fall to Dupec 46-14. Great to see, Mitch. I have, in the years we've covered this podcast, I've never seen Dupec live. I've never been to a Dupec game because usually I'm staying closer to the Quad Cities area. I'm not getting up towards, Rockford and the Northwest Upstate Illini. So it's great. It was great to meet Coach Hoffman and great to be there in person.
I thought you were going to say it was the first time you'd seen the steamer mobile.
Nope.
Just trotting along the track there. We love that.
I've seen that a few times. I had the whole big plan. I was going to take a picture and tweet out like attention Mitch Stormer with the steamer in there, and I forgot.
Oh, I would have printed it out and framed it in my house.
I have one from last year.
I don't remember if we tweeted this out or someone wrote a story about that, like the origin of that thing. I have to find that. If we didn't retweet it, I got to find it and redo it because I didn't have a chance to read it, but I would love to know more about it.
KWQC did the story, and actually they ran a really funny promo for the highlight zone, and the promo is talking about on Friday nights, they love going to local high school football games, but it's always hard to find parking because every game is so jam packed. And they pull into the parking lot and they find one spot left in the parking lot and they get cut off by the steamer who takes the last spot parked. So it's good. It's a good spot. And they dive into, the story's good. They dive into, the history of the steamer. Started in the early 90s, and it was a local guy. I think he's a teacher at the school or connected to the high school somehow, who likes to tinker around and wanted to build something. And so it's a golf cart with the the design of the steamer built around it, and somebody sits inside and drives it down the sideline when they score touchdowns.
I love that thing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So unfortunately, I did not see the steamer get to run up and down because Dupek played really well in this one. So Dupek took control of this one early and never really looked back. Connor Hughes had a career high 4 rushing touchdowns for the playoff bound Rivermen. Mitch, it seems like, good programs always find, new names. And I don't think Connor Hughes has been a name that we've called very much on the podcast, and great credit to him. In the time I was there, man, he looked the part. He was finding the holes and he wasn't missing the gaps. He was getting into the end zone and fighting for the yardage. So credit to him getting the job done. 4 touchdowns, a career high.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on the instant reacts that maybe, if the weather played any sort of factor into Dupek maybe switching up their game plan. So yeah, when that happens and you take a passing attack and kind of flip the script, you're going to see some new names and 4 rushing touchdowns. Again, for Connor Hughes, that's really great. And more importantly, Dupek Rivermen get their 6th win, and they're headed back to the 3A playoffs. I don't think they're going to drop to 2. I think they'll be 3A.
Yeah, Kyle makes it seem like they'll end up in 3A again, where they have been the last 2 years. So, Mitch, the really fun part of the game, I was walking out. I had gotten my highlights. I had to rush over to get to Morrison. As I was leaving, I caught a lineman interception, nearly a lineman touchdown. Jaden Guffey snags a pass right out of the air, almost like, goes right in his lap, right in his gut, snags it. He rumbles a couple yards, couldn't quite get into the end zone, but either way, great play from him. Fun to see. The players went nuts. You could hear the fans going crazy. So I did see the video. I think we retweeted it.
Yep. Yeah, they captured a good video of that. So yeah, that's on our timeline. It's great play. Love it.
Yeah. Well, man, my biggest regret is if I stuck around for 2 more seconds, I'd have got it. But and the other thing, I was in such a rush on Friday. Apparently they have like an anchor sandwich, or I was asked if I had gotten one before I left, and sadly I did not. I don't know exactly what it is, but to anyone listening, let me know. I've had a pork chop, I believe, from Fulton before, but
I'm surprised they're not slinging Manny's Pizza out of there by now.
They might do that too.
That'd be a mess.
But but
it'd be worth it, but it'd be a mess.
Yeah. But yeah, it was one of those nights where I knew I had to keep moving because I didn't want to miss anything. And, so I got some plays early.
And then you missed something.
I know. And then, thanks.
Never look back, Greg. Just get to your car, tunnel vision. Right at your car.
That's about right. That's about how you have to do it. So anyway, great win for Dupek. Fulton will bounce back. They'll have a tough matchup coming up, but, see how they can bounce back. Lena Winslow gets the win 46-6 over Eastland Pearl City. Gage Dunker, 219 yards, 4 touchdowns. Lena Winslow had 323 yards rushing as a team. Dunker surpasses 3,000 yards in his career. It's the defense, though, Mitch, that continues, to play well for, I guess, both sides of the ball play well. Yeah. But, the defense really made a statement in this one.
Yeah, Lee Win scored first. EPC ran the kick back, and then after that, it was a Lee Win show. They held the Wildcats to 49 total yards in this game. So a great win for Lee Win. A great win for Lee Win. And, things are now, as they have in the past couple of weeks, kind of building up to that week 9 against Forreston and certainly beyond as they try and defend their 3-time state champion.
We'll talk Forreston in a second here. But first, Stockton got the win 46-6 over West Carroll. We talked about what Stockton has coming up. They're sitting at 3 wins with Dakota and Galena left. We'll get into that in a second. But Forreston gets the big non-conference win over Gibson City Melvin Sibley, 22-21. Cardinals took an early lead, but trailed in the majority of this one. They rallied late for the nice win. You know, this is a team in Forreston that hasn't put up the big totals. You know, they haven't, really been putting up the huge numbers week in and week out. But to get a clutch win like this, and they're still sitting right there undefeated, right there neck and neck with Lena Winslow. A game like this goes a long way, for a program building some confidence into heading into the postseason for sure.
Yeah, certainly. And they have one of the hardest finishing stretches out of anybody we cover. Certainly with this one against GCMS, they have Dupec on the road in week 8 and then finalizing with Lena Winslow. So not sure that's how Coach Janicki would want the season to be scheduled, but it seems like it always is that way, at least in the NUIC. Someone has to have that sort of gauntlet at the end of the year. But again, you play the game and you got to play to win, and the Force has been doing that. So a great win against GCMS, who came in at 5-1. They'll be a playoff team too. And even though what you just talked about, they're not, again, putting games away maybe that we've seen in years past. They're still putting games away, right? Like they're still winning, just not in the same way. So they have a good team like this. They got a good defense. They could very well be a problem for Dupec and Lena Winslow moving forward the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, some 7-0 teams. We talk about a benefit to being 7-0 or a really good team at the end of the year like this is that in, maybe several games throughout your season, you're going to get a running clock and your starters aren't in the game anymore. You're resting your starters. They're not going to get hurt. But I do think there's huge value on the flip side where week in and week out, this Forreston team is in some battles. They got to come up clutch and make some plays. And, they got to win these football games. And I think that's going to go a long way come playoff time, that they're battle tested. They've been in those, key moments, those clutch moments where they have to make the play. So guys making the plays for the Cardinals, Owen Mulder, again, 95 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Mitch, every week I get the stat sheet. Coach Janicki sends it out and I really appreciate it. This week, like every week, I look through how many guys are in the rushing column for the stat sheet. This week, they had 7 guys listed on the sheet that all had at least one touch in the game. So
I think, I don't know what it is on the season, but I remember like last year, it was like 15 or 16 players that had rushing yards on the year for Forreston. So, yeah, it's by committee every single year.
But Mitch, are you sitting down? I don't want to catch you off guard here. The shocking stat.
Don't tell me they passed, Greg. Don't tell me that.
Mitch, the Cardinals passed 4 times in this game.
Oh, that's 5 times too many.
Now I'll say they had 1 complete pass for 55 yards. Okay. So 4 passes though for Forreston in this one.
Did it score?
It was not a touchdown. I believe it was just 55 yards. Yep.
Well, again, that's too many passes, guys.
All right. Well, we kind of read through the standings a little bit. Forreston, 7-0, 6-0 in conference play, along with Lena Winslow. You have Dupec right behind them at 6-1 in conference play and 6-1 overall. Then you have Fulton at 4-3, 4-3 in conference play. Galena at 2-5. They're 2-4 in conference play. You have Stockton also at 2-4, 2-4 overall. You have Dakota 3-4, and they are 2-4 in conference play. So those are the teams still fighting for their playoff live. Or no, I believe Galena now has 5 losses overall. Yeah. So I had read 4 losses. They had 5. So the teams still fighting for that playoff spot. Stockton, Dakota, and then obviously Fulton there with the 4-3 record. Let's get into the matchups here. Dakota at Stockton, Forreston at Dupec. Fulton goes on the road in a non-conference game at Knoxville. Galena at Lena Winslow. Eastland Pearl City taking on West Carroll. So Forreston at Dupec is huge. And then non-conference wise, you got Fulton at Knoxville. But Stockton and Dakota, like we referenced, ton on the line there for them. We way back at the beginning of this episode, we said the playoffs start now for a lot of teams. This is it.
Yeah, I think I stand by what I said at the top of this segment, that the winner of this game will go to the playoffs. Certainly the loser gets eliminated with their 5th loss, but just let's look at Stockton, right? If they win, they're at 4-4. They play Galena, which I think is a winnable game for Dakota. If they win, scrolling, they would play EPC, which I also think is a winnable game for them. So yeah, big game here in week 8 for those two teams. Looking at Fulton too. It's again, we've talked enough about the game and what it means for their playoff implications. Though it's not win or lose for them because they have West Carroll. No disrespect to West Carroll going into week 9, but I think Fulton would pick up a win there if they fall to Knoxville and would be able to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, just in general, that Fulton Knoxville game is such a, measuring stick for 1A and for 2A and just kind of where these teams and where these conferences really, rank. I think that's what's really interesting is that, the best in the Lincoln Land Conference goes up against Fulton, who is a really good program, but, they've lost to Dupec, they lost to Lena Winslow and to Forreston. So, I just think it's a really interesting to see how they stack up against one of the best in another conference nearby. And what you pointed out is interesting. Last week, in that loss to Dupec, maybe weather dictated that Dupec kind of went to the ground more often and had 4 rushing touchdowns from Connor Hughes. Well, now fast forward to a Knoxville team that they're going to go up against. They're all run. That's what they do, and they do it really well. So Forreston or Fulton is certainly going to be challenged again on the ground. See how they match up there. And, on the flip side, obviously, this Knoxville program, can they keep doing, what they've been doing? Can they see what they can do against Fulton here in the non-conference? Forreston at Dupec. It's a lot of fun in this one. Two teams that want to get a huge marquee win at the end of their season here as we start looking ahead to the playoffs. Both teams are going into the playoffs in different brackets in 3A and in 1A, but a win here for either one of them would be a marquee kind of statement win.
Yep. And, for Forreston going to Dupec, that, and again, are you looking ahead to week 9? I certainly hope not, because Dupec will take the win right from you if you're doing that. But it'll be a good measuring stick for Forreston too, to play a bigger team going into that much anticipated matchup against Lena in week 9.
Yep. All right. Well, should we transition to 8-man and then wrap this thing up?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Let's go through some scores. Mitch, kind of a weird couple weeks here. A lot of blowout scores. And then looking ahead, not a huge amount of marquee matchups, in week 8. We'll see some in week 9, but let's go through the scores here. Amboy gets the win 68-0 over AFC. River Ridge 50-22 over Quest Academy. Milledgeville got the win on Saturday over Pawnee. Polo got the big win 52-12 over Blue Ridge. Ridgewood got the 52-12 win over West Prairie. West Central gets the win 68-24 over Unity Christian. And Flanagan Cornell Woodland 15 and Bushnell Prairie City 14. So close one there in that matchup. But a lot of these games, just kind of some lopsided scores in the 8-man ranks. We're not seeing the marquee ranking, ranked versus ranked matchups.
Yeah, well, they're saving all that for the playoffs, Greg, because we're going to see a lot of,
and it'll be a ton of fun for sure.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of rematches of regular season games that we enjoyed. So, yeah, this is just the nature of the scheduling here. So, big wins by the good programs and moving forward. It's all we got here, right?
Yeah,
all we can do.
Well, let's look ahead. Orangeville goes on the road to Amboy in week 8. West Prairie takes on River Ridge. Milledgeville goes on the road to Decatur Unity Christian. Quest is at Polo, and BPC, Bushnell Prairie City, is at Ridgewood. Those are some of the games to watch out for. Again, not exactly like marquee matchups, but the one that kind of stands out to me, you have River Ridge sitting at 4-3. They're taking on that West Prairie team also at 4-3. So big matchup there for both of those schools. Looking ahead at, let's see, what was the other one I wanted to look at? Ridgewood. Ridgewood takes on Bushnell Prairie City. So Ridgewood's 5-2. Bushnell Prairie City sitting at 4-3. So another big matchup with some playoff implications there as well. So Mitch, we always say that coaches can't look ahead, but we can. So
Yep.
not a lot of marquee matchups here in week 8, but there is one big matchup waiting. You have Amboy and Polo meeting up in week 9. So that'll be a good one. We can look ahead. Coaches can't do it, but we can look ahead. That'll be one we'll be talking about next week for sure.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Kyle shoots out this week for what his projections look like for the playoffs, because I don't think based on anything that happened this week that much will have changed from last week. But it's just exciting to look forward to that. We love that tournament, and because they play the week before the other state titles. So yeah, it's kind of a standalone thing as they march to Monmouth. So yeah, looking forward to as 8-man kind of wraps up here, 2 weeks left. Looking forward to that matchup you just mentioned in week 9. But I'm looking ahead. I'm looking ahead to the playoffs. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Man, I'm excited for the march to Monmouth, as you just coined it. I love it.
Yep.
That 8-man playoffs, it gets really, really fun. And actually, Mitch, I just recently saw on Facebook, there's a Facebook group that covers I8FA, so the 8-man stuff in Illinois. They do a podcast every week and really break down the 8-man division. So really cool to hear that. And obviously, Kyle does a great job covering the Northwest Upstate Illini teams involved and kind of 8-man in general. But I just saw a new podcast out there. So, I don't have the exact name of it, but I'll make sure to get it out there.
I'm going to check right now real quick, because the last time I checked, the Illinois 8-man football domain had been hijacked. It had been like the domain had expired and someone else bought it. And the last I knew, it was going to Somalia or something. And I don't even see it on Google anymore. So that's a shame. But good to hear that there are other ways to get your 8-man news, and hopefully they can get a new website up and rolling here shortly.
Well, don't get your computer spammed and hacked or
Look, I sent the Prince money and I never heard anything back.
There you go. All right, well, Mitch, we'll wrap this episode up. We haven't talked about where I'm going this week. I think I might make a special detour, might head back to the old alma mater, Otto Marquette, hosting St. Bede Academy. So a rivalry renewed there. That goes back to when I was in high school. St. Bede and Marquette were big rivals. They haven't played on the football field. I'm not sure how long it's been, but maybe since they were both in the Three Rivers, which has probably been 10 years or more now. So anyway, good to see that rivalry back in the mix. And my son and I may head back there on Friday night.
And how is Marquette looking this year? I do not know. I'm just asking.
So Marquette, I believe, is sitting at 5-2. They, 5-2. They just lost last week to Seneca, and Seneca's undefeated on the year, playing really well. Yep. St. Bede's at 5-2 as well, so it'll be good. It should be a good matchup. So, yeah, looking forward to that one. That might be what I end up doing. So,
okay.
So yeah, so keep your eyes and ears posted for me, because I won't be catching necessarily any local games, quote unquote, to our listening coverage area, but I'll be nearby. I'll be following along. To everyone listening, of course, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Stay tuned. Next week we'll be back. We'll be talking week 9, talking that kind of playoff type preview. And Mitch, we are just a week away from getting to the NUIC football playoff preview show. Yep. I make my annual pilgrimage up to the heart of NUIC country and join Kyle Kampmeyer. And he usually brings in Kyle Leach from Milledgeville and Greg Pruis from Morrison. I believe he'll probably have on the show. So don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure who's going to be there, but to anyone listening, follow along. We'll link it out. We'll send out a link. It's really great. I'm lucky to be a part of it. I love being a part of it. It's great coverage of the small schools and of the 1A through 3A and the 8-man that we really cover so extensively. There's a lot of great playoff preview shows, especially at the IHSA state level, but I think we really get down into the nitty-gritty of the teams we really care about, and we kind of try to scout out some teams from around the state to really get the real information that you want to know. So it's always a good time. I can't wait for it. That's coming so soon. And of course, we'll be back next week with the Instant Reacts podcast. I may be doing the Instant Reacts podcast from the basement of my childhood home. I'll have to figure out a setup. And so
all right.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out who we going to bring on, potentially who we going to bring on here. I thought this is just on the fly here. Haven't run this by you yet. Maybe we get like Shuckman or Don O'Brien from, from the Quincy area.
Yeah. Yep. That's not a bad idea. I don't think
that's potential. So,
Yep.
all right, let's, if they're listening to
not.
this, consider this an invite. How about that?
Yeah, right. We'll see how late they can stay up, because these things go pretty deep into the night. So we will,
Well,
looking forward
and
to it. Whoever joins us, we're looking forward to it.
that's right. And I mean, it won't be a traditional, Friday night, because I won't be doing coverage for WQAD if I go back to Ottawa. But it will mean you'll have to wait, Mitch, until after I'm done getting a tenderloin from Knights of Columbus. I will have to stop there first, do the Marquette alumni thing, get a pork chop, or not a pork chop, maybe get a pork chop at the game, then a Polonsik's tenderloin from the Knights of Columbus. So it's great. It's the best you're going to find. So
all right, that's high praise.
Here you go. All right, Mitch. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you to everyone who listens. Thank you to everyone who follows along. We'll be back next week talking all the playoff implications and all the things you need to know heading into week 9. We'll see you then.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.